Уважаемые дамы и господа, сессия 6. Культура объединяет или разъединяет страны. Готовится начать свою работу. Приглашаем вас пройти на свои места.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, Panel 6 Is Culture Uniting or Dividing Nations is about to start. Please proceed to your seats.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, сессия 6. Культура объединяет или разъединяет страны. Начинает свою работу. Приглашаем вас пройти на свои места.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, Panel 6 Is Culture Uniting or Dividing Nations is about to start. Please proceed to your seats. Уважаемые дамы и господа, сессия 6 «Культура объединяет или разъединяет страны» начинает свою работу. Приглашаем вас пройти в зал. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Panel 6 Is Culture Uniting or Dividing Nations is about to start. Please proceed to your seats.
На сцену приглашаются модератор Mikhail Shvydkoy, специальный представитель президента Российской Федерации по международному культурному сотрудничеству.
Please welcome to the stage Moderator Mikhail Shvydkoy, Russia's special presidential representative for international cultural cooperation.
Фэн Литао, советник-посланник по культуре посольства КНР в Российской Федерации, директор Китайского культурного центра в Москве.
Fan Litao, Minister Consular for Culture of Embassy of China in the Russian Federation, Director of the Chinese Cultural Center in Moscow.
Михаил Петровский, генеральный директор Государственного Эрмитажа, декан Восточного факультета СПбГУ, академик РАН.
Mikhail Petrovsky, Director General of the State Hermitage Museum, Dean of the Faculty of Asian and African Studies, St. Petersburg State University, full member of the Russian Academy of Sciences.
Родриго де Лима Баэна Суарес, чрезвычайный полномочный посол Федеративной Республики Бразилии в Российской Федерации.
Rodrigo de Lima Baena Soares, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Federative Republic of Brazil to the Russian Federation.
Джиоти Малхотра, главный редактор газеты The Tribune, Индия.
Jyoti Malhotra, Editor-in-Chief of the Tribune Group, India.
Федор Соснов, исполнительный директор Федерального фонда социально-экономической поддержки отечественной кинематографии «Фонд кино».
Fyodor Sosnov, Executive Director of Federal Fund for Social and Economic Support to National Cinematography Cinema Fund.
Дмитрий Пристансков, продюсер, сооснователь кинокомпании Monumental Vision.
Dmitry Pristanskov, film producer, co-founder of the film company Monumental Vision.
Владимир Григорьев, директор Департамента государственной поддержки периодической печати и книжной индустрии Минцифры России.
Vladimir Grigoriev, Director of the Department of the Government Support of Periodical Press and Book Industry of Ministry of Digital Development, Communications and Mass Media of the Russian Federation.
Dear colleagues, thanks for your coming here. Thanks to everyone who come to our panel. It's obvious, if we have a look at the amount of people at this hall in the morning, or yesterday in the morning, or yesterday afternoon when there was a discussions of politics, economy, when the Minister of Foreign Affairs had a floor, and that amount which we can see now, we can understand the relation to culture. It not only in the framework of Primakov reading, but in a whole. It is some opinion that there is important things like politics, economy, disarmament, some Ukrainian problem, and another issue is culture. And this minority, I can call, with a good meaning, of course, it represented by those people who believe that culture has a special value. I use this word because culture has a meaning. It's a great collection of authors and thinking persons of the previous century who were defining the role of culture in humanship from the politic and economic points of view. This book has been printed when economist Hanchenko, in his work Dialogue with Civilization, wrote such phrase: power comes after culture. It is a moment when power goes after culture. I would like to underline it because everyone thinks that culture goes after power, economy, but in real, and I agree with the words of Huntington, power comes after culture. If we have a look at what is happening now in the world, we can find the confirmation that everyone is fighting not only for which oil and gas should be sold in Europe, but the conflict, current conflict, also has a reason in values, because today values are not less important than economic interests. We are former Marxist supporters. We didn't imagine that sometimes we can say such words, that not economy is, not politics is a concentrated economy, but culture is a concentrated politics, because it is a conflict of values, and in this sense culture today plays a great role. And my first question, there are 2 years passed since the beginning of the special military operation. We have written a lot about the cancellation of Russian culture, and I don't think there is sense to talk about it today. It's obvious that during these 2 years, despite some institutions are not working, for example, from European countries, from the North America, they are not working with the Russian Federation. The state institutions of culture, they do not work with Russia. But there is a huge world, a global south, or you can call it in whatever name, which receives Russian culture flawless, and representatives of Russian culture, they are always at the main European scenes. For example, you can see at Carmen Opera, it was a premiere in Vienna. You can understand that without 5 Russian representatives there will be no such opera. So the first question I would like to raise, May 2022, my colleagues from Japan, we on a regular basis from 2006 we have a festival of Russian culture in Japan. So they made such a call, such a statement to the Japanese society, to the world, that we are actors of culture in Japan. We want to underline that culture is higher than politics, that it should not depend on politics, and we will continue our good relationship with our colleagues from Russian Federation, and we will continue despite such circumstances. So the festival is ended. There was and the question is, so is it true that culture is not, doesn't depend on politics or not? It's a very short question. How do you think is culture depends on politics or not? Good afternoon, dear friends. For me, it's a great honor to take a part in today's discussion, and a great honor and a great challenge, because Russian language is still not native for me, but I'm a rather brave person, and today I will try to use Russian language to make my speech. Culture, for sure, is a very important tool for every country and every person. From the very beginning, I would like to talk a little bit about Chinese culture. You know that China, the same as Russia, has its long history. In real, researches shows that not later than 5,000 years ago, the Chinese culture has its origin, and not later than 3,000 years ago, Chinese people started to write the same system which they are using now, the system of hieroglyph. So, but Chinese history and culture shows that every nation should use to take the culture from other nations. I would like to give an example. I know that among us there is a beautiful lady from India. You know that Buddhism has its origin in 6th age AD, and then Buddhism has introduced into China, and then in a very short time gain some Chinese specifics. And now Buddhism is an integral part of Chinese culture and an integral part of many Chinese people. And another example. This year, during Chinese New Year, we have organized a concert of Chinese national music in Moscow, which of course gained a lot of interest from our Russian friends. But not everyone knows that those musical instruments which were used by Chinese band had its origin not from China, but from the countries of Central and West Asia. So I believe that culture unites us, culture and politics. The question you asked me. Culture is a culture. I think that is my short answer. Thanks a lot. It's the first time when I heard from our Chinese counterpart that there is something from China, but not made in China. It is the same as we heard, for example, about pelmeni, that they were made in China. And as Marco Polo have taken everything from China. So. It's a question now, is it obvious or not how culture influence on politics or vice versa, and does it exist without any circumstances? How do you think? Of course, culture is over politics, and politics is a part of the world culture, and now becomes subordinated part of politics. I see it's such a tendency now. There is such a thing now as a cancellation, a culture of cancellation. If you, for example, don't like something, you can just cancel it. For example, if you don't like colonialism, you can just cancel it. And today, in the framework of such culture of cancellation, for example, the Russia can be cancelled. Some people want it. For example, the culture of museum cancellation. In such situation, culture comes to the first place because our and not our desire to change the world order. It is based on the cultural values and historical memory. All the people they have different both these things. All that can become reasons for their wars and conflicts, and only culture can reconcile them with all that set of differences and finds some key to reconcile them. I mean, in some, for example, museum where everyone see that everyone is good. For example, when in museum we make our exhibitions, so we show the stereotypes about the people when it is based not on the differences, but which cannot be overcome, but on some common things, for example, traditional values of Islam, the it is prohibited to have some judge percent. And we know it is a solution that Islamic banks have found this decision to overcome this percent issue. There are many examples. So you can see here my pictures. It is the exhibition of Flamand art in Hermitage. The last such exhibition in the world was 20 years ago, and now we have collected such exhibition only from Russian collections. It also explains the difference between Flandria and Holland, because it is in one. In Flandria, it goes about the conformity of life, and in Holland, it says about the death. It's also the time of flourishing of great geographical openings, the beginning of colonialism, and so on. And second exhibition. So it's this exhibition is called Hard Art Amsterdam, because officially all ties are liquidated. It is a condensed exhibition. They told officially that I'm making exhibition from the Pompidou Center because they want to continue to show and explain about Russian culture and art. I think it's a receipt how we can do it in the future. So that's the end. Thank you very much. I would like to say that Hermitage is a phenomenon by itself, and there you can understand that culture has some unified codes. For example, today in the morning, I was talking with the Minister of Culture of the Russian Federation, Olga Lyubimova, and she just came from Brazil, where Russian seasons successfully started. In this sense, the opening of Latin America continent started many years ago, and there is a huge cultural tradition, but it's obvious that in Brazil, where more than quarter of maybe 50 years ballet school of the Bolshoi theater works, and the interest to Russian culture was always very big, and we always had a big interest to Brazilian culture. And it's obvious that everyone wanted to come to Rio de Janeiro, to visit Copacabana, to wear white trousers, and it was even in literature and in folklore. And with a great pleasure, I would like to ask our friend, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary in Russia, Rodrigo de Lima Baena Suarez, to say just one thing. Between us, a big difficulty, of course, is economy, because it's a big distance between Russia and Brazil. But nevertheless, there is such a magnetism to each other. So why is it so?
Thank you, my dear friend, Ambassador Mikhail Shvydkoy, and thank you for this honorable invitation to take part in this roundtable discussion of so many distinguished participants. You know, for us diplomats, the subject of culture is essential. And it's essential because I think it stems from the multiple opportunities that culture provides for circulating ideas and presenting and reinforcing products and advancing values. And depends on their historical importance, they will receive greater or lesser acceptance, arouse greater or lesser curiosity. But the primary objective, and this is very clear, is to create elements of rapprochement, openness between people. Culture, in my opinion, can play this central role in dismantling prejudices, entrenched opinions that do not lead to dialogue and that separate peoples. Culture generates trust and reinforces positive perceptions of each other. At a time of sharp differences and multiple challenges, culture does not fuel hatred, but mutual understanding and bonds through identity sharing processes. And it's important to say that from these elements that I just outlined, respect is reaffirmed. Respect for differences, as our friend has just mentioned, and acceptance of variety. This necessary process works both within countries and in their external relations. A country like Brazil, with its rich and diversified culture, must accept, reinforce, and disseminate its diversity as a fundamental part of its identity, respecting differences and transforming them into an asset, an integral part of the nationality of its culture. In its foreign policy, it should promote cultural exchange as Brazil does with Russia. And this cultural exchange is important because it makes it possible for others to come into contact with ideas and cultural heritage and contributing to create or strengthen an environment of understanding and peace. So, in my opinion, a culture cements a relationship between countries. And it does so because it links societies, not governments. Therefore, as well as shedding light on our own culture, we have to keep an open mind to receive the contributions of other cultures. And I'm answering today's panel's question, if culture should bring countries closer to each other, should unite us. We shouldn't have a world divided between antagonist groups. A division, by the way, that Brazil emphatically repudiates. Culture, due its universal appeal, should not be divided either. Politicizing cultural manifestations does not serve the ultimate purpose of culture, to enrich our lives through the acquisition of knowledge, the accumulation of experience within our immediate environment, or through interaction with other people. So an active and dynamic cultural exchange can build this bridge of dialogue. Of course, cultural exchange is difficult to count, to measure, and it's not quantifiable as a bilateral trade relationship would be, for instance. Nor does it generate results in the short term. It requires maturing and only bears fruit in the long term, and is not at all tangible. And I'll tell you a very short story about my tenure when I was ambassador in Mozambique, in Africa. Mozambique is a very important country for us. It's a Portuguese-speaking country. We have lots of investment, trade, and big technical projects with them. And at that time, we had some difficulties in our political relationship with them due to other circumstances. And as ambassador, I gave highest priority to our cultural programs, the cultural ties with Mozambique. And at the end of my tenure, the then foreign minister hosted.
И в конце моего срока пребывания там министр иностранных дел устроил честь меня.
He told me this. Well, you got the right perception that we were facing some problems, difficulties in our political relationship, and you managed to put culture in as your biggest priority, and you rightly did so. And here with Russia, we don't have political difficulties with Russia, but we have a strong cultural ties with this wonderful country. And I will give you some examples of how we managed to get in contact with Russian institutions. We had lots of activities with different cultural institutions here, not only in Moscow, but in other cities here in Russia. We had the honor to organize many concerts, photo, art exhibition, theater performances, literature events, and there are some slides now that you can see that. An example of endless cultural cooperation, the potential that we have between Russia and Brazil. And I can mention many initiatives that we carried out in my tenure here as ambassador. We had a wonderful exhibition at the Tsaritsina Museum about the Langsdorff expedition. I don't know if you are familiar with his story, but it's a wonderful story. Georg Langsdorff was a Russian diplomat and scientist who traveled more than 17,000 kilometers in Brazil, throughout the Brazilian territory. This in the right after our independence in 1822. And he made lots of important discoveries of our fauna and flora. And he was accompanied by a group of artists, as Rugendas, Tonnet, and so on, and many others. And that we display at that exhibition at Tsaritsina samples from the archive of the Russian Academy of Science, never before seen by the public. Of course, we have in music, we celebrate our National Day at the Tchaikovsky Conservatory. And we have also in cinema, so many other initiatives. And I'd like to highlight one of them about what Ambassador Shvydkoy mentioned about the Bolshoi School in Brazil. We are very proud to have this, the only Bolshoi school outside Russia is in Brazil. And yesterday, by coincidence, I met with the director of the Bolshoi school in Brazil, Pavel Kazarian, and he told me good things about the school. And now we have 254 Brazilian children, teenagers register at the Bolshoi school. And most of them are coming from low-income families. So this is not only a great opportunity for them to learn ballet from the best professors in the world, I would say Russian, most of them Russians, but also to give opportunity to help their families as well. We are very proud also to have as primo ballerina, many Brazilian dancers in Kazan, in Samara, in Perm. So this is an excellent example of cultural cooperation between our two countries, Ambassador. And this is really important to highlight. And well, I think that this is, I think I've managed by conclusion to convey this message of the key role that culture should play in getting peoples and countries together, in uniting us. Understanding and embracing the importance of culture has never been more crucial, in my view. Thank you.
Спасибо вам большое.
Thank you very much. You know, when you were talking, I realized that here on the podium we have a mini BRICS conference. We lack only a person from South Africa. But when we talk about cultural exchange within BRICS, they represent very different cultures, and cultural exchanges are carried out at a time when a country has a need to get something for their own needs. The country is open to the world and would like to incorporate something for their own purposes. And with that idea in mind, India, which is represented by Jed Malhotra here, is India is an extremely self-sufficient country. I think you produce 2,500 movies a year. There's a great music in India, its own culture of dancing, great authors, which have really high circulations throughout the world. And in this sense, I would like to understand myself what is important today for contemporary India. India combines a number of cultures. India is not a nation of just one culture, it is a nation of multiple cultures, similar to China or Russia. What is important to get from outside world for India? What can you borrow from us? I understand what we can borrow from you, but what you can borrow from us, Brazil or China?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for that question. But before I answer it, I just want to thank MMO and Professor Dinkin. I'm not sure. Oh, there you are. Thank you for inviting me to Moscow. I'm coming back after 10 years, and it's really, really wonderful to be back. And I'll tell you what Russia or Russian culture and why it's interesting to India and to Indians. You know, in your introduction, you called yourself a former Marxist. Now, that in itself is funny, because you have a panel here, and at least one person on this panel is a serving current Marxist. So I think humor is a very heightened and a high form of culture. If you can laugh at yourself.
Мы с Фонтау придерживаемся марксистских взглядов.
Both Fontau and us are Marxists, so there are two of us.
Two of us are former Marxists? You're both former Marxists? Okay. I think if you can laugh at yourself, you're already a highly cultured person. But, you know, this question of culture, whether it's uniting or dividing, whether is culture politics, is politics culture, it's a fascinating subject, of course, and actually I have more questions than answers. And I thought I would ask the question, what is culture? So, and in my mind, I think there are three kinds of answers, if you like. The first is, you know, you talked about India has the largest, it has the largest movie industry and the film industry in the world, cinema industry. That's true. We have a lot of cuisines. We have a lot of, you know, monuments, temples, churches, all kinds of sort of varieties or manifestations of culture. That's, I think, one way of looking at culture. You know, the sari I wear, that's a manifestation of my culture. But what is my culture? Is it Indian culture? Is it Bengal, South India? From different parts of the country, I think you have different cultures. But I think that's only one sort of culture. And the second kind of culture, within quotes, that I would like to talk about more is about the exchange of ideas. And as a journalist, I'm an Indian journalist, I write in the English language. Should I be condemned for writing in what was probably a foreign language, but has become now completely Indian, which unites and divides the country in many ways? Now, so, you know, you don't have that danger in Russia, although I would argue that a lot of people who have less diverse cultures, I think Russia is, by the way, a very, very diverse country, but perhaps because it's white Russia dominates a lot of the other parts of Russia. I may be wrong. But so that's one, you know, this exchange of ideas. I mean, you could argue that the Primakov readings is an exchange of ideas, and why there are no Indian journalists who are full-time living and serving and working in Moscow. Vice versa, I think Russia has a few journalists in Delhi. Do they appropriately or adequately represent the country or write about the country? These are all good questions. And the third aspect of culture that interests me, and which I think is also highly political, is when nations try to change the behavior of other nations. You know, for example, what the Americans tried to do in Afghanistan, or what the Soviets tried to do in Afghanistan as well, or what, say, the Chinese tried to do in their own country. And that was, by the way, called the Cultural Revolution. So I'm just wondering whether we can, so this attempt at changing the behavior of people, is that politics or is that culture? Or is it both? And I will argue that it is both, because culture is politics. And what you eat and what you wear, and how you talk, and the language that you use and the food that you eat is politics, and it's also culture, of course. And I just want to, and I'll end by saying one or two more points I'd like to make, which is that I think there's a lot of countries that have, because we have different political dispensations, or we have bad politics between us, which is sort of trying to, so this bad politics tries to define the lives of the peoples of these two countries. You know, for example, India and Pakistan. We have, you know, our two governments don't talk to each other. We have a very bad diplomatic relationship. But if you look at the culture, we share a lot. We share language, we share food, we share the same jokes. A lot of us, you know, share the same jokes. So does this mean that you should stop the people from interacting with each other? Should the politics define or interfere or intervene in your lives to such an extent that the people of India and Pakistan don't talk to each other anymore, or are not allowed to speak to each other? Similarly, India and China have a diplomatic or a political problem, you know about that, it's on the boundary. But does this mean that Chinese, you know, ballet or Chinese movies should not come into India, or vice versa? So where is that border? What is that dividing line where we do not allow our people to sort of exchange views and to talk to each other? And I'm going to end it there, and you know, we hopefully will pick up the thread of this conversation. But thank you again for for having me here.
Спасибо вам большое.
Thank you very much. The question you asked about the dividing line, the border which we cannot cross in terms of culture, it's a very important question, and I think we will leave it to the end. I have only one brief question to you. You are an editor-in-chief. Do you print some cultural news on the front page? Ever? News about culture, are they posted on the front page?
Yes, of course. The front page is not just about politics. It's about what people want to read. So whether it's, you know, culture. So again, we don't define culture by a dance performance or a music performance, or if the Bolshoi comes to Delhi or to Chandigarh, which is where the headquarters of the Tribune are. But it's about what you would say to me or to my reporters, and how you would make your story important. So I think newspapers are about people, and I think that's what culture is about. And I think that's what ideas, it's the exchange of ideas. I think that's what it's about. So we would definitely put anything that's out of the ordinary on the front page, because I think anything out of the ordinary, whether it's culture or politics or however you want to define it, or categorize it or put it into silos, we break those silos on the front page of a newspaper. And yes, we would definitely do that.
So the visit of Professor Piotrovsky to India will be on the front page, because he is the director of the Hermitage Museum.
It will definitely be on the front page of the Tribune. And I'll tell you why. Because we want to know what articles of India's civilization, maybe 200 or 300 years ago, does the Hermitage have these articles? And if they do, I want to know what they are. And can we have them back, please?
уже о чем-то договорились, есть конкретно.
Okay, we have some specific results, which are much simpler to resolve than. And I think Director Sosnovsky will have hard time speaking after you. India produces 2,500 movies in Russian cinematography. We have undergone serious changes, and on the one hand, movie making is an industry, and we are interested in promoting that industry in many countries, and specifically in such big countries as India and China. As my Georgian friend used to say, if every Chinese in the morning took a teaspoon of my wine, I would be the happiest man in the world. So if every Chinese would buy a ticket for a Russian movie, we would be the happiest people in the world. And still, my question is like that. Who do we make movies for? For domestic market? For dissemination of those movies globally? Is it industry? And where does the industry ends and art starts? Because this tradition of the Soviet movie making is not the number of tickets sold on the first weekend. We valued good movies, and but we live in another reality which the outside world imposed on us. And the moment we became open to the world, movie making became an industry. Is it an art or a propaganda? Good afternoon, dear participants. Thank you, Mikhail, for following your question. I feel it's even harder to find an answer to it. So, the first try, or the debut works of students of the art school, is it art? Paintings for sale, is it art? Young composer who produces a soundtrack, is it an art or an industry? Depends on the soundtrack. Depends on the quality of the painting. And I think that if, you cannot confront in industry and art, as well as we confront politics and art and culture. We should consider it as a combination. As said, they are all united. They are all intertwined. If you think of an image, we may say that the culture is a flourishing garden, while the economics is the soil for the garden. And it depends on the fertility of the soil. It depends on the number of rains and erosions. All those factors, they determine the stability of the garden. And the politics, those are the winds which blow. Winds can be soft, and then the gardens are flourishing. They produce seeds, and the garden is becoming bigger and bigger, and it brings to the enrichment of the garden. But there are torrential winds, extreme winds, hurricanes, which broke trees both in your own garden and in the neighboring garden. And the stronger wind is, the more trees are broken. So said, will the garden disappear? No, the fruit fall on the ground, they produce seeds, seeds will grow into saplings, and so again, there are various forces. If the wind is too strong, and if it is a directional wind, and if wind disperses seeds of the same culture, using it as the spread of values. Do you think that it is the culture or the tree itself to blame that wind blows? Okay, a tree is perceived by good thing, by people. A tree will always be positive, and it's only the strength of wind which determines the effects. And the growth of the garden is the growth of global economy. And we know that today's economy is inequality, and the wind will never blow in a way that there will be equality in economics. And that means that the economics serving the grounds for cultural ties, investment ties, serving the means to penetrate into someone else's garden. It means that there is always an inequality. Politics may contribute to that inequality, making it bigger, blowing stronger wings, or exercising a more careful approach and try to leverage the winds so that they do not make harm. So it's a wrong statement. Culture by itself is outside politics, outside economics. But unless you perceive it as part of it, you will not be able to predict various threats that may arise, and you may not make a good assumption of the development of cultures.
And that's why if you ask about cinema, so at which moment movies become propaganda, it's very interesting moment, at which moment it becomes a tool of influence. At the moment when there is no choice, every process becomes an influence tool when there is a lack of choice. If you don't have a choice, if you're limited to watch only one type of content, for example, on a legislation level, or, for example, at the expense of monopoly advantages. The same as in economy. If you can produce and distribute, for example, 80% of the content, it's a lack of choice. Yes, in some sense, you don't give a choice to people who maybe want to have such choice. And there is a question that further international cooperation in cultural area, we talk a lot about multipolar world. It is a necessity to exist in the world of efforts which would equalize that disproportion of cultures, predict its destructive influence on each other. And if such structures will be constructed, then gardens will become rich with new ideas, with new masterpieces, friendship, collaboration during its creation, and it will not be filled with the same things all the time. There is such things as usual grass. It can be spread all over the land. You don't need to take care of it. We all take care of our garden. We are trying to make it rich. We want to flourish it. We are very happy to see flowers from every corner of the world in our garden. And for sure, we don't want to see in our gardens the usual wheat. And it's, of course, the main question, the main contradiction, what is the cultural enrichment and what is cultural dominance is. And to end this question is possible only when we have a dialogue based on respect, on attention, on love, and on time. Thanks a lot. Fyodor Gennadievich gave us such a fragment of Candide, which means take care of your garden. Maybe you will have success in something. So equalizing is not the question only of a culture. It can be applied everywhere. It's one of the biggest problem. A few words we would like to ask Federal Unit to talk about his cinematography. Today we worked in co-productions a lot. For example, there is a European special program every March. We were entering it, we were working with it. Now we are working with Chinese cinematography and with the Indian and with industries of other countries. So such joint co-production, which we got used to have until 2022. So do we have now any opportunities to go to the south or to the east to spread our interests in cinematography? Thanks a lot for your question. First of all, I would like to say a few phrases on your first question, because my second will evolutionate from it. Of course, I cannot make the direct correlation between culture and politics, because there are four pillars like economy, politics, religion, and culture. And of course, the power of the system is defined by the weakest link. The power of the system when there were no religion, no trade links, and as a result of cognitive revolution about 30,000 of years ago, new ways of thinking, of speaking to each other appears. Then there was ways of cancellation of the information. There was some monuments of a human with a head of a lion, and at that time that culture, it was not influenced by other three elements of this system. Until the moment people can speak to each other, culture has a right to be essential and immortal in this life. And coming back to the question about relations with each other and with the other world, it's obvious what we see now. It's something temporary and short-term in the context of the whole history. And for sure, in the future, it will not be the same situation as it was before 2022. Because by joint efforts, together with our friendly world community, we need to know, we need to make so that to restore the previous ties and to restore the adequate system there where it is absent now. And from the point of view of the cinema, it's very important to note the format of shaping production. Previously we were not thinking about it, but the last 2 years we started to come to the Eastern world. For example, a good example is between Russia and Belarus, but even the same unique is a Russian-Indian joint production with the support of Cinema Fund. Our colleagues from India has requested us to make a cinema about how in March of how Indian students were liberated and sent to their homeland, to India. There is one very important thing. That cultural code, which Russians have, which Indians have, and the opportunity to look at one problem with the same eyes. For all countries to have the product which will be interested for the people from all of them. Of course, it's very difficult, but we are facing more difficult issues. It's information exchange, administration issues, trans-border payments, financial issues. It's, of course, a big problem, for example, now to send financial assets from India to Russia or from Russia to India, and we faced this problem just when we were working on the last project. For example, our colleagues from Egypt made a request to us to make a cinema about Six-Day War of Judgment Day. Of course, the idea is very good, but the financial issues are always relevant. Sometimes we are in so-called law vacuum when we don't know where we can come to ask the question in the countries, for example, in Egypt or in India, to raise this project to interstate level, not to be just like a private cooperation, but to have of a higher level status. For example, our colleagues from Africa, from Cameroon, they proposed to make a movie about Russian football coach Nepomniachtchi. It's the case when the football team of Cameroon become one of the favorite teams in the World Championships, overcoming Argentina. So there are many ideas, there are plenty of them, but sometimes we have a lack of financial support. We have a lot of institutions like different commissions on trade and cultural cooperation, but always some questions are raised there which are already have a problematic character. But also we would like for such projects to send there which do not have any solution, but to present their new projects. For example, as Russian-Indian joint project. Of course, it gives us a lot of dyed nerve cells. With a great pleasure, of course, I would like to talk to you how to build a relationship with Bollywood, where a part of Russia there are hundreds, thousands of enterprises, companies which have money, but they don't ready to share with information. They are not ready to prove the presence of financial assets, but they are rich with ideas. That's why we use, for example, commercial and trade chambers of Russia and India as a contact, or, for example, representatives of Russian cooperation agency in India. So, and always it's very difficult to assemble all these parts in one thing. We need some kind of protocol of joint actions for such projects to start to work at full volume. Taking an example, Russian-Belarus project, it's almost first over the last few years Russian-Belarus project in the framework of co-production. And it's also very difficult, it goes very difficult due to the mentality, but also peculiarities of the legislation system, because of course we are different countries and the systems are different, the same as, for example, the law, the tax system, and so on. Of course, there is some sad moments, but I hope for the fruitful, successful cooperation. Thank you very much. Of course, there is points to be discussed. Every country has its own rules. When we work with China, we understand to whom we come, who takes a decision. In India, another system. Brazil has other system. South Africa, for example, has another system. Every time you need to search for some methodics.
Very quickly, you asked how you can make a collaboration with Bollywood, right? I would say get Professor Dinkin to invite Shah Rukh Khan to MMO. Once Shah Rukh Khan comes to Moscow, you are sure. Do you know who Shah Rukh Khan is? You know Shah Rukh Khan? Okay.
Так сказать, он обо мне не знает.
We all know who is Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh Khan comes to Moscow, I think this whole tension between the countries is, you're going to flatten it. So politics cannot come in the way of culture, at least of Shah Rukh Khan.
Спасибо большое.
Thanks a lot. I think the panel discussion is going very successful and fruitful. I would like to give the floor to Vladimir Grigoriev. He's last but not least, because Russia is a rather literature-centric country, and he was a person who, I can say, created a modern book industry. It's a very serious case, and in this relation, this book industry shows how diverse it is and how it's open, at which extent it is open to the world. And I would like to ask you, in connection with the fact that some foreign agencies, they don't give license for translations. What are you doing in this way? So how you can make? You cannot make like in a cinema the trailers. So do you print such books or not? Talking about the publishing houses of foreign countries, so how it influences the market. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear speakers. I would like to say that still there was not such significant influence on book market. Nevertheless, it influenced a lot on translators, on development of the translation school. And in this regard, I remember at the previous Sunday we celebrated a religious holiday. It is the Pentecost, and it is a big also religion holiday, the day of Saint Trinity, when Holy Spirit come to the fishermen and gave them the knowledges of foreign languages and the art of oratorical skills, to give for them opportunity to have this communication opportunity all over the world. So I think today someone is trying to compare his political ambitions with that Holy Spirit. And how we can stop or cancel such kind of process on dividing people, cultures, it's not understandable. But coming back to industrial question, I think that that authors whose agents and publishing houses have the rights on these authors will suffer more because they don't have opportunity to give their books to be translated in other languages. Of course, it's not the first language according to the amount of people who are speaking it. I'm talking about Russian language, but it's about 300 millions of people. And of course, if we're talking about the high level readers, this book market is very important. Talking about our national market, commercial literature was replaced by our domestic authors, so about 80-85% of literature, published books, they are published by the national authors, and the percentage of readers is very active. And as Dostoevsky has told once, that Russian culture and Russian character is very perceiving. And of course, our readers started to read Chinese and Indian authors. It's outstanding cultures, and with a great attention, we are looking for the literature process in a Chinese Republic and what is happening in India. We are attending with a great pleasure, for example, an international book exhibition in New Delhi, where we are meeting with the editors, with authors, young and experienced. The same is happening with the Arabic world. So the world is diverse, and literature develops everywhere, in every corner of the world. New and interesting authors appear. I'm not talking about educational literature, about literature for children. A great step was made by China in the sphere of children literature. There are great authors in India. And I think we also what we have to we have a lot to show in this sphere. We have to promote both classical and modern literature in Chinese and Indian markets, because they are very diverse, because there are Hindi, Bengali, Tamil languages, and as I understand, it will be acceptable everywhere and in demand. Thank you very much. I have such a question. We don't have enough time. I would like to ask you a few questions. There are representatives. I will say one thing of chauvinism. They are representatives of world cultures, and if we are talking about the multiple voices of the world, this understanding as a world culture, will it remain or not? Because in Russian, Chinese, and Indian and Brazilian, they are world culture, and will they remain or not? And at which extent, as previously was told, it is necessary to equalize that voices. And when we are talking about the world culture of civilization character, it's a very serious question, because there is a world culture, the part of which these cultures are. We are always talking about the sovereignty of culture. The second forum will be devoted to it.
Sovereign cultures are self-sufficient, they are wonderful, but the notion of the world culture goes aside. Are they part of the world culture? Very often sovereign cultures are not associated with world culture, but the world culture is not only a philosophical notion, it's a recipe for salvation. With your own culture you can do anything you like. Your Russian culture cannot be cancelled, not because it is very good, because it has become part of the world culture, so it cannot be cancelled. That's very important to understand. We know thousands of examples how you can cancel your own culture. Christians. They cancelled a lot of ancient cultures. In our country, we had similar cases, a lot of them. Radical Muslims, they are destroying other cultures and pagan cultures. And how can we combine our excellent culture with that of the global one? There is one recipe, which is the Soviet time recipe. And following the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was announced that Russia was the prison for the peoples. I will explain. It was the words of Vladimir Lenin who wrote it before the revolution. But what did we do? We, in the Soviet times, we didn't destroy the previous culture. We rather we elevated the cultures of those ethnic groups which were deprived of that possibility, and we really elevated those cultures to very high levels. That's the recipe, both Soviet and Russian, which would be very important now. And when everything goes wrong and the word colonialism comes into the vocabulary again as a foreign word, it comes from the European cultures and it should be cancelled. So thank you very much. But it brings me to another question. I'd like to ask Mr. Fenley-Tao. But the question goes to everyone, too. And so I would like to ask all the panelists. We say that globalism is over. It has died. It perished. By globalism, we mean those cosmopolitan pseudo-American standards that are imposed on other nations. That's what we mean by globalism. But nevertheless, there are such notions which are very important as humanity, human values, traditional values, and in some sense, they are the values that belong to all the humanity. So globalism is gone. No global values. What is left? What will serve the grounds for negotiations between India and China, Russia and South Africa? So first, and we will have to come to terms about some things with the Americans too. It's not only the matter of two defense secretaries. What grounds we will have to come to terms between Christians and Protestants, Buddhists and Muslims? Do they exist? Thank you very much for this question. First of all, we should admit that we are different peoples. We are diverse, and that's why the diversity in culture of the world is a gift given to us. It's an excellent thing. And still, between us, if we have some similar features as well. For instance, in Russia, patriotism is valued very much, and so is the case in China. You have deep respect for all the generations, and so do we. And I think in other countries, they also have similar values. So between our peoples, our nations, our countries, there are something in common. Secondly, we can be subjected to mutual influence. You had, and part of your culture will be borrowed by us, and the opposite. we all know that tea originated from China. When you say about that, look at the Indian lady. There is evidence in every language of the world. Tea is pronounced in one way. First, it is pronounced as chai or tea or te. The matter is that tea was transported by land. If it is transported by land, then it's called chai, because in the north of China, where transportation routes started, people pronounced this as cha. But in the rest of China, it is te. First, I was surprised and couldn't understand why the English people pronounced it as tea. I asked colleagues from different countries how they pronounce chai. So there are two ways only, chai or te. Tea was brought in Russia in the 19th century only, but it immediately became an integral part of the Russian cuisine. So many Russians believe that only they can brew right tea. That's just a minor example, and an example that we have something in common, and based on the common values we can come to terms about the rest of the things. Mikhail, so apart from tea, what are other things we can come to terms? Indians do not drink vodka. I first mentioned about the interest rate. We can also come to terms about family. How many wives one man can have. We can come to terms if women should carry veils. So we have a lot of things to discuss and come to terms to. But for that end, we should be free from stereotypes. What is Russian history? What is Russian art? Our opinion, someone else's opinion. And we should really remove the irritation and the conflict between cultures, the war of cultures. We should transform into armistice, and then we can achieve the same in politics. Mr. Ambassador, please. Well, we have not raised the topic of coffee, and certainly we should speak about coffee too. Cocoa, but I don't think you drink tea in Brazil. So what we'll be talking about, what we'll be negotiating about, what are the grounds for us to come to terms?
Thank you. Well, on the question of tea, just to tell you, in Portuguese is chá, no? Not chai, but chá in Portuguese. Chá. Well, you were talking about globalism and the risks and dangers of globalism, and I agree with you with that. But this term, globalism, refers to a certain period of history, especially in the 90s, in the consensus of Washington, Fukuyama's idea of the end of history, etc. Of course, we are in different moment of history, and I agree with the setbacks that we've been witnessing regarding economic globalism. I would prefer cultural globalism. I think there's nothing wrong with cultural globalism, and that's the whole purpose of the idea of a cultural exchange, of interaction between countries. And that's the whole purpose of our cultural activities. Here in Russia, for instance, that we can assimilate many of the Russian culture, so rich Russian culture, and also to present our ideas about culture, about our cinema, our theater, our different forms of culture. So I would say that we should stress the need of speed up, actually, the interaction between countries. And this is a form of cultural globalism, something that I would prefer to talk about instead of economic globalism. Thank you.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Malhotra, what could you say on that account? I should understand one thing. Different people come together. They have different ideas of the world, multiple approaches. Sikhs, Hindu, Buddhist, Christians, they all come together. What are the grounds for them to come to terms, speaking of cultural values, of culture in general?
I mean, that's a great question, and I'll tell you what I think is, what I think works for India, is that you have to live and let live. And what that basically means is that if you want to go to your temple, then you should go to your temple. If you want to go to your mosque, then please go to your mosque. But don't force me to go to your mosque, or don't force me to go to your church. Your church is yours, my temple is mine. I don't eat beef. I don't eat beef. Is that politics or is that culture? You eat pork. I eat pork. I don't eat beef. What is it? Is it politics or is it culture? So whether it's Sikhs, Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Christians, how do you live together? And the only way to live together is to say, okay, you can do your thing and I'll do mine. And I'll just add very briefly, you know, a lot of us cultures around the world want to say, I am better than yours, my culture is better than yours, or I came first and therefore I'm better than you. I mean, just a small example. So when we were in school, which is many decades ago, we grew up reading that the Portuguese discovered India, right? Vasco da Gama. Remember him? 1492. Now, does this mean that nobody before 1492...
Ну, это в каком-то смысле Индия открыла Васко да Гаму.
I don't understand what was that? Sorry.
I think in a certain way it was India which discovered Vasco da Gama.
You know, but so just a quick point that I'd like to make is that by 1492, which is already 1440 or 50 years later, because in 55 AD, Christianity had already been brought from the, what is now called the Middle East, to India. So if in 55 or in thereabouts, if, you know, over 1,000 years before that, so just the short point is that why should somebody come first and say, okay, this is what I did? I think it's just, you know, everybody has to do either their thing or there must be an amalgam, and it's like a khichdi. Nandan, what's the word for khichdi? Sorry? Mixture. So I think the more mixing that you have with each other, the more intermarrying or the more coming together, this differentiation between cultures, or my culture is better than yours, I think that should go.
Господин посол, пожалуйста.
Just a very small note.
Mr. Ambassador, please.
The Indian colleague just said, because we were so-called discovered by the Portuguese as well, so in 1500. But there were, at that time, indigenous people living in Brazil already. So maybe it's not a question of the Portuguese culture was better, and that should overcome the indigenous people culture. So we have the same, the same approach that you just mentioned.
No, I mean, the fact that you're recognizing that the Portuguese came to South America, or what is now South America today, or Latin America, well, not Latin America, but South America today, and that they destroyed, within quotes, the cultures that already existed, the fact that you're recognizing that, I think, is a huge step. So a big hand to the ambassador of Brazil.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Коллеги,
Dear colleagues, further, would you take the question and very briefly, and then take a couple of questions from the floor? You are asking about the grounds to come to terms and following the death of globalism. But you know, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, all those notions are much older than the notion of globalism. Before globalism came into being, people had any devices to come to term. And globalism is not a system of values, it's a system of distribution of values. So for the past decades, there was some prevailing system of values distribution based on main resources, and the situation is continuous. The pricing of a cultural unit, there are such notions, you know, people who study and research cultural values, they know about that. We have ranking agencies, exhibitions, auctions. It's dominated by the capital, which distribution system is based on. The fact is that the world, under that influence, realized that they have to diversify those cultural units and approaches to their determination, regions for their determinations. It doesn't impede and hampers possibilities for the people to come to terms and find common grounds. Rather, it expands the tool sets for that. So, in fact, I don't think that there is any confrontation between the collapse of globalism and the determination of common grounds for the cultural context, cultural exchanges and solutions that will work for the benefits of all the parties involved. I think the value of human life may serve the base for coming to terms, and the culture may become a means. It will not happen under some signal, and it will not happen simultaneously, but through culture, through the ability of the man, there's a really thinking person, thinking creatures. We can support ties with those who share our own values and build new bridges with the world community in general. I don't think we can come to any new conclusion. I think Yuri Lotman, great scientist in philology and literature researcher, at the end of the 20th century, he gave such an answer that when he wrote that culture starts with prohibitions. Culture is a set of rules which regulates the human behavior. And that essay may lay in the grounds for any kind of agreement, as well as, turn testaments. Thank you very much. A couple of questions from the floor. Is there anybody to bring a mic? Okay. You're welcome. I'm Olga Baimov from Kazakhstan. Mikhail, can you name any cultural practices or initiative which may strengthen peace, prevention of conflicts, and promoting peace and concord in the world? Thank you very much, and I think that question goes to Mr. Piotrovsky. I think the chief cultural initiative is to be based on people's mobility, not relocation, but traveling and interaction in the area of culture. Thank you. We made that point already today, and our Indian colleague said that culture is mostly communications, so we have to establish communications and streamline them. It's one of the main issues existing today when people on TV say, "Nikolai, can you hear me?" Yes, I do. But it doesn't mean that he understands you. Sometimes we won't hear. In today's conflict with Western nations, we won't hear each other, let alone understanding. It's very important that culture may serve a link for direct communications, and it seems to me throughout all the times when conflicts arise, we have to talk more. We have to try to understand each other better. Culture means a different layer. Politics, its responses last for 5-7 years or so. Culture lives through much longer historical waves, and when we talk about our relations with China, those waves are centuries long, as well as our relations with Kazakhstan. It's not just a year or two political collisions, and I'm convinced that we have to talk, and I would like to thank Professor Dinking that for the 10th time he opened the Primakov readings.
And then that lady. So, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thanks a lot for discussion. My name is Lydia Kulik. I'm a specialist on India, and also I'm in for Russian-Indian relationship. But I didn't want to ask the question, but the course of discussion inspired me to announce the idea, which maybe is in the air for many times ago. Maybe the people who are here today can support this idea. Maybe Mikhail Efimovich or Grigoriev will support. I think Jyoti will support me. I hope you can hear me. When you come to India, I think you can notice that it's a nation which read a lot. They print a lot. The industry of polygraphy is very developed there. When you talk to Indians, they remember that when they were children, they read a lot of Russian books which were well translated and well illustrated, and they want for these books to be given to their children, for their children to read it. And in the case, in conditions of these difficulties, maybe such small step like re-edition of that current books in India for such an audience, a great audience who loves to read, will become a bridge. Like Jyoti already told, we had a big problem with understanding and communication, even between such close in spirit countries. For example, we don't have any journalist of India in Russia. So let us think about it. Thanks a lot for your question. I've talked with Oleg Novikov on this issue when I heard about this problem. It was edited by the Progress published house, and we can print it even in India. It's very good to receive the rights on printing it. Thanks a lot. We will try to realize it. Good afternoon, Mikhail Efimovich. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the panel session. I'm Anna Belova from Kaliningrad. I would like to ask, 2024, we celebrate the anniversary 300 years of Immanuel Kant birth. There were a lot of events devoted to this philosopher. We consider it as our heritage, not only of Kaliningrad region, but it's a world heritage. But Mr. Scholz, during 300th anniversary celebration in Germany, told that Russia should not use the name of Immanuel Kant and should not consider its heritage. And Ms. Giotti also mentioned that there are some cancellations, some bans, some country doesn't allow to use its culture or doesn't allow somebody to use its cultural heritage. So, according to your opinion, how do you think such statement can become effective to divide countries? So actually, it's one of the biggest problem of the modern time. It's appropriation and attribution. So whose author and painter is, for example, Leonardo da Vinci has such a written. So he has died in France, but nobody tells where he was born. And second, appropriation. So how can we use the elements of another culture? And there are a lot of voices that you cannot use our culture. For example, previously it was the Egyptian mania. So Europeans used a lot elements from Egypt, but they told they shouldn't, and so on. And we need to remember that it wave by wave. For example, today Kant, it's okay today, but previously, some years ago, nobody had the right to talk about Kant. So that's the main task of the culture, to break all that obstacles, how to achieve the situation when nobody will argue on these issues. So the culture of ban and the culture of cancellation, it means it is you shouldn't use it because it was never allowed to anybody.
Publishers, you know, it was such an interesting time in India because Progress Publishers published Russian literature, not just in English, but in many Indian languages, right? So I remember buying all 4 volumes of And Quiet Flows the Dawn for like 50 rupees, which probably was not even $1. And I'm talking 30 or 40 years ago. So what did that headline, what did the name of that book do to you? And Quiet Flows the Dawn. It meant something. Now, people of my generation know that book, know that those volumes. So what do? We know that the dawn is the river. We know that whether it's flowing quietly or not quietly. So you use that in our own language. Unquiet flows the Ganga. You know, if you want to give a headline for a story. So what I'm saying is, so there was that happening, and then on this simultaneously you had in private publishing, you had Alexander Solzhenitsyn, you know, A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, Cancer Ward. So you had all that Gulag stuff that we were reading on the one hand, and then you had all this Russian literature that we were reading on the other. So this sort of, all these ideas, you know, this sort of amalgam of ideas that people in India that we read about. So we're all sort of familiar with what was going on. We didn't know about the politics of it, whether Progress Publishers was a political arm of the Communist Party or not. We didn't care at all. The fact is that we read good literature.
Thanks a lot. We need to conclude. And talking about Kant, I can say that you know that Kaliningrad was 7 years in the composition of the Russian Empire, and Immanuel Kant was saying about to the Russian crown. He was saying how devoted he is to Russian Empire, and I was born in Kyrgyzstan, where the word "kant" means sweet. That's why I would like to say that the world is very diverse, and in different corners of the world, some words can mean different things. I would like to thank everyone and Alexander Dinkin for the opportunity to have this panel. I would like to ask you to pay your attention. It's one of very interesting panels in our forum. Here is very intelligent people. Thanks a lot that you are here till the end of the day. We are closing the working part of our Primakov readings. We will have another events. I'm very grateful to everyone. See you next time.